All right. Hello, world. Welcome to another dWeb chat. I think we're on number 5 here. I am bringing with us today, we're very lucky to be joined by Wen Airdrop from the Web3 kind of domain community. He runs iHeart Domains. We're going to chat a little bit about Web3 domains in general, and then our experience at NamesCon 2023. My first NamesCon, not sure if his first NamesCon, but we're going to get into all of that right now. I am accompanied by Squeaky, per usual, who is my counterpart here on the show. Um, Welcome. Thank you for taking the time. How are you?
Hey, and I'm doing awesome, bro. Another blessed Sunday.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, okay, let's hop right into it. By the way, I'm going to be drinking a little bit of my mate, my tea. Hope that doesn't bother anybody. So we met for the first time in person at Consensus 2023 this year. So in Austin, Texas, which seems to be the place where we hang out. Um, and we met at the Do You Mind handshake having party, right? So I had seen your branding and stuff like that, and then I think that's where we first introduced each other. You left with a handshake rug, much appreciated. What How did I know how I got there? I'm obsessed with handshake. How did you get there? What brought you to the Do You Mind handshake party?
Yeah, so first let me start off with thank you, solid rug. It's actually still rolled up in the same little pack. Like I'm the kind of person that if I really like something, I preserve it the way it is and respect the art that it is. So thank you for that. The how did I end up at the How Do You Mind party? I actually so there's a particular contributor to the handshake community that I guess you could say per se I follow. But if Noel Opperman, I think a lot of people are familiar with him with the ATX platform. He's one of the more people that I'm familiar with from the handshake community in that area. Anytime he throws an event or something like that, like I try to make an attendance. He's actually the person who introduced me to handshake to begin with. So I saw that it was happening as a part of or in conjunction with or simultaneously running with consensus, and I knew I was going to be out there anyway. So yeah, that was a must do. I had to be there.
I'm so glad you brought up Noel. Noel is also, I definitely follow Noel myself. Noel is instrumental to the handshake community because he really pushed, handshake was born during quarantine practically, right? And he really challenged people to make this an in-person thing. He brought like when I put handshake on the rugs, right? The logo on the rugs, I'm trying to bring it to life. I'm trying to make it tangible. I think Noel does a really good job of doing that with the in-person meetups because he's aside from being extremely eloquent, right, and very thoughtful with his words, and his delivery, he really challenges people to make handshake a real thing and a human thing besides just a digital thing. So I can definitely see. And actually, he's one of the big reasons I went to Consensus 2022 and the first handshake meetup that I ever went to. Yeah, he was instrumental in that as well. So big shout out to Noel from both of us, I think, if that's fair to say. And that was it. I mean, I think we were both bouncing around Austin for a couple days there, doing all sorts of different crypto stuff. But we really started hanging out at NamesCon. Now, I guess we'll get into this trip at NamesCon because I think it's cool to show, to explain to people who haven't had a chance to go to a NamesCon, like, hey, what was it? What's it actually like? So we should hop into that. But before that, on a technical level, you dabble. I want you to tell us for sure what you do, but you dabble in I think like raw crypto, like tokens and crypto and DeFi, right? And then we're into domains, right? Different Web3 domains. We clearly have a brand. What has that journey been like? What advice would you give somebody? I mean, I know you're a seasoned businessman in general. Like what have you picked up along the way?
Well, yeah. So my history and I guess my current existence in the space. I've been a serial entrepreneur all my life. I've had some pretty strong successes. I entered the cryptocurrency space about 2.5 years ago, mostly through like janky DeFi, like super janky DeFi. I'm talking about like own forks and stake this to get that and all that good stuff. And
Good old.
yeah, and simultaneously at the same time is when Unstoppable was making their presence with their first TLD, which was dot crypto. I had acquired an identity from there, and it's weird. Like my passion for this part of the business, or this part of the blockchain, aside from drinking the Kool-Aid, it's myself and seeing the potential in digital identity. It was like one of the only conversations I was having with my mother at the time about cryptocurrency and DeFi. She was basically zoning out literally every other thing that I was talking about except digital identity. And she actually minted her own names from Unstoppable at that time. And my mother's no longer here. That's actually where the heart comes from. That's our family name. But anyway, so that passion came deeper from that. Just like anything else, like one of the type of people that goes down a rabbit hole when I'm really interested in something, like I can learn something relatively quickly because I will like dedicate and kind of super obsessed in learning what it was all about. And that's the journey that I took with domains. Henceforth, I heart domains. And so to answer the who am I? My platform is called I Heart Domains, and it really is a universal love. It's a love of the technology of Web3 domains in general. Despite the platform, obviously, I've got some of my favorites sometimes over others, just depending on their level of progression and whatever weird stuff they're into. But my platform serves to not only educate and share alpha of the Web3 domain, space itself in general, but, I've built a pretty hefty portfolio kind of balanced with all the different players in the space. And this is my calling, I believe, registrar, broker, all that good stuff. So yeah, just continuing on the journey of that and trying to bring as many people with me as possible.
That's awesome, man. You touched on a lot. I want to unpack it. First and foremost, yeah, my condolences, about your mother. That is sad, but I also applaud you for finding a way to celebrate it in your business and in your day, right? And that's I think that's really important. My mom, I recently had a 10-year anniversary, which was like a weird, it's been a very long time, but I try to do that as well. So first of all, definitely, I commend you for that. But I think you also, the fact that you were able to talk to her about it also kind of drives home a point here. I think we both have a very similar story in kind of getting into crypto and going down yield farming and all these different things, right? And it's like, well, there is no way to kind of justify that besides I'm trying to get an edge or I'm trying to make some money, right? It sounds like it's almost like casino-y, but once you get into identity and domaining, you start to think, okay, there's real world application here. This can actually be relatable to your common man, right, or person, and there's just a lot of different angles, whether it's identity, whether it's an address, whether it's just the ability to own your content. There's all sorts of different angles. So I think it makes sense that you were able to relate and maybe keep talking about it. I also can definitely relate to the rabbit hole. It has not stopped for me. My introduction was HandyCon 1. I had bought some tokens on Namebase, some handshake tokens because somebody told me it might be a good investment. And I didn't really know what to do with them, but then I was really bored and hopped into this convention and kind of like Noel might have been for you in person. Mike and the team, Mike McElhaney, also shout out to Mike, were very like fun about handshake and making it like a safe place to be like, we have no idea what we're doing, but this is cool, let's learn, right? And I think that was really great. And I think that you and I in our respective spaces, me on a micro level, being specifically just kind of handshake, I played around with Cosmos and other ecosystems, but we go, okay, we learned something, we can't stop thinking about it, how are we going to share it? All right, well, I need a platform to share it. I need to make a brand, right? So I'm going to make a brand and then I'm going to start sharing it. So, and that's something that you excel at really well. And I want you to tell us, because you have a much broader, right, perspective, which is probably something that's worth considering as a seasoned business person, is you want to keep an eye on all the horses in the race, right? And you do that with these amazing Twitter spaces. You get people amped up. You're doing airdrops, like you're up to all sorts of stuff. So I can tell that it's fun for you. You're smiling right now. What drives that? Besides, I mean, I think it's obvious. I've been in a Twitter space with you. People are just having a great time. You also stopped lunch with us once because you were like, I'm not missing my Twitter space. My people are waiting, right? And I was like, all right, this man prioritizes what he's doing. Tell us, if you don't mind, just dabbling and all that. What have you learned? What's it like keeping an eye on everything? Do you think it's more fun? Do you think, you don't have to single out favorites, but just, yeah, if you could riff off of that.
Well, yeah. So the space during the time that I've been interested in obviously building in it professionally is changed, and sometimes it's extremely fun. Sometimes it's frustrating and challenging. What I do now as far as the community engagement and how I'm building is a continuation of how I've existed in this space kind of from the beginning. So I explained, the history of how or what I was involved in when I first got into the space. I ended up becoming a part of a community, a DeFi community on the BNB chain, getting pretty deep in NFTs and DeFi and stuff there. And started actually, for the past year and some change, actually, consistently doing Twitter spaces and building, ran a space called Rug City, calling out rugs and things like that, doing, what do you call it, project analysis and things like that. Like this has always been, again, like, so I think that's the misconception as well. Like there is definitely an economic part to my business. I mean, obviously, like I'm a business person first and foremost. Like the solid fundamentals, i.e., not doing something for no reason, is the core of anything that I'm going to do. But aside from that, like this is really, it really is a passion for me. When I say that I caught the bug and went down the rabbit hole, and this was something I shared with my mother, like that's something that means something. And so um, you mentioned earlier that a lot of people are in the space, because they have an economic goal, like that's what they're here for. I'm probably a lot less so than most people, especially despite the appearance of my platform. I literally enjoy doing this. I get up in the morning looking for domains from different platforms, both on the Web2, Web3 side. And when I acquire a domain, 99% of the time, like I have no intent whatsoever of reselling it to another person. I like seeing the new tech that's being brought out. I like when I see new integrations, regardless of who it comes from. Like if I see someone advancing in the space and making these things just a little cooler, making me look just a little less crazy every time I go outside and talk about Web3 domains, like I'm all about that. And that's how we do this. Like going back to Noel is the answer to a question that a lot of people are still asking. And he was definitely the answer to a question for me. It's like, if you have a thing that no one knows about, what's kind of the best way to start getting adoption and showing people about it? And he's one of them people that shows up physically in person with great branding that's clear and makes sense. When you see him, you see the hat, you see the hey.tia, you see everything. The picture makes sense and it makes you want to listen to it. And it's the answer to a question for a lot of people. Like, how do I get other people to make these things look as cool to them as they do to me? And so I wanted to create a platform all about that. And so, yeah, I enjoy running those spaces. I enjoy the community that we've built so far. I wish I had more nerds on my squad so that we can keep building our nerd world bigger and getting a digital identity push forward.
I'm a business nerd, but I think I'm definitely part of the squad now, and we will have. I think you and I caught the bug, and I don't see us getting rid of it anytime soon. So we're gonna keep learning and building, which is a new chapter that I think we're both getting into is starting to get a little bit more technical. But a couple quick things. And this is an honest question, not a BNB is as I understand it, it is the DeFi finance chain kind of platform. It is in that it's not centralized. It has validators, right? But as I understand it, it's built on the Cosmos framework, and it's like the Wild West, if you will, right? You can do all
Yeah,
sorts of stuff on
yeah,
BNB. So that's kind of like a fun place to explore DeFi. They have good branding. There's people like you in the community that kind of explain things. So if someone's trying to get into DeFi, that might be a cool place to have some fun. And then let's see. I agree with you. The integrations and the hype, it's just good to see, right? If you once you have caught the bug the way that I have, I think what I realize is, okay, we may be turning a chapter on a 30-year-old story here, right? Which is DNS. It will not be one flip of the page, my friend. There will be all sorts of stuff. This book will probably it'll probably get burned and all sorts of stuff and reprinted, and then it's going to change in all sorts of ways. So the way I see it is that like people say, don't focus on the day trading of Bitcoin. Look at the chart as a whole, right? That is kind of the same way that I analyze domains, and I see no trouble in kind of looking at the different the different technologies, the different integrations, more than, oh, this integration happened. It's like, why did this integration happen? Why did this company all of a sudden start taking a look at Web3 domains? Because this is a big name brand, and now they may see potential in identity, and that's kind of like I remember when the dawn of social media, when companies started taking social media seriously, and it wasn't just teenagers, right? And it was like, and now companies just exist on social media, and they've grown to astronomical sizes. Even like household brands for cleaning products, they're all, it's all on social media. But I remember the early days when it was like, MySpace is just for kids trying to get in trouble. It's like, okay, but all of a sudden Target's on there. So I think, it's important to, even if you're not super passionate about it, haven't quote unquote caught the bug, it is good to survey the field and see that this is a very big industry, and it has escape velocity if these things start getting adopted, and they're going to go in all sorts of directions. It will not be one clear direction. Best example is probably Bitcoin, right? Like, definitely not one clear direction. There was no DeFi before Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin effectively sparked all sorts of stuff. All right, and shout out to you for doing what you do. I think that sometimes when someone's just sitting at their computer in their basement and who knows where, right? They just see the branding, and it's hard to convey that there is another person on the other side who is, scheduling flights, hotels, going to conferences, taking time, right? Buying a fancy microphone so that they can make sure that they live stream or record, the NamesCon talks so people can see them within 12 hours, like that. When you see a profile picture, sometimes it's worth considering that there might be a little bit more behind that. That is all to say. Let's talk about. I agree with you. Noel making things real is good. When we went to NamesCon, I want to get your take on NamesCon as NamesCon, the event, the industry of domains, and where Web3 fits in that, and then I'll give you my take, and then we'll see if maybe people can get something out of that.
Well, yeah. So this actually was my second NamesCon.
Okay.
I had the pleasure of going last year, and I only went for one day. I don't know why I didn't feel like I needed to stay more than one day. For some reason, I think I felt maybe a little overwhelmed by the Web2 presence and didn't see where we fit. What attracted me last year was that there were quite a few panels that actually were dedicated to Web3 and got a chance to meet Bradley Cam from Unstoppable, etc. So that obviously is what inspired me to come this year. I've going down the rabbit hole a little bit more and making more of my life about domains itself, made this NamesCon super relevant. So all that coming back to what did I think of this NamesCon? I actually super enjoyed it. On the Web3 side, and I'm sure that you could probably agree, total as far as attendance wise, I think we represented a relatively small squad of people who were believers in the Web3 journey, but it was all super cool dudes, and we all connected in our different ways. And again, bringing back like the profile picture and stuff, like meeting people in person and being able to feel each other's vibe and understand where people are coming from, that really does add value, and it can change the context of how a relationship can be built. And so I enjoyed that part, right? Really super. The sessions this year, I think, were very curated and on point. They took us through a good journey of how the Web2 industry, I think, feels about this industry. I think our panels gave us the chance to kind of give some really straightforward information to those who are in attendance that are considering that are on that side. Definitely got to have a lot of conversations with people about Web3 domains and see what their input and their feedback was. And yeah, there are some very clear messages that I got back from them. And I don't, maybe prior to that, I'll get I'll let you share your input on how you felt with NamesCon. But there are some things that, I would touch on that I think are super clear, that I think maybe we're distracted from, that are truly our roadblocks for adoption, other than what we think are the roadblocks, i.e. each other.
Yeah. Okay. So I live in California. NamesCon was in Austin, Texas. I have a full-time job. I have 2 dogs. I have a house. I got tenant roommates. I got things. So for me to take a week off, right, to go to another state it's not small. So I'm going to speak my mind on my experience. With that said, I think so. I've been to Consensus. I've been to other industry trade shows in the past. I've worked them. I have a history of sales, right? And industry trade shows and personal relationships are by far long and away. I know that we've gone through COVID and this work from home, world, but that is where business is done, as far as I'm concerned. I'm an in-person guy, and so going to Consensus is Disneyland and New Year's all packed into one. It's crazy. You got after parties everywhere. Money's flying all over the place digitally, through dinners and drinks and all of that. NamesCon is a park compared to that, right? It is a smaller, condensed version of it. It's also a different crowd, right? So NamesCon is a crowd of people that have been here since the dawn of the internet, right? And so that is one thing that is very different. Now, I appreciate that because I'm getting a little bit older now, and I learned that you learn from people that have been around the block, right? Even if their version of the block is very different than the new one, they have seen things and they have wisdom to give you. And so that was my experience at NamesCon this year, was to learn. All right, Web 2 ain't my thing. I'm certain of that. I am a Web 3 guy, right? And I'm specifically a handshake guy. That's not going to change. Every time I try to find something to change that about me, it doesn't happen, right? I'm a handshake person. With that said, there is a lot about the Web 2 domain world, parting crypto for a second. So forgetting that this is a blockchain for a moment, there's a lot about that industry that I was able to learn, specifically how domains are financed, right? Brokering domains, right? There isn't a blockchain there to settle all transactions. So they've had to come up with some creative ways, right? To the auctions, how auctions function, right? And how important registrars are. So being able to learn those types of things up close and personal were very important to me. I think that Handshake, I'll speak to Handshake specifically, needs financing. Somebody wants to buy a name that is at a very large cost and they want to buy it over the course of 12 months. They should be able to do that, of course, with an escrow service. And if they fall short on payment number 4, they don't get the name, right? But they should be able to. That would be important for buyers and sellers to create more liquidity in the market, right? And growth. I think that would be important. The other thing I learned is that you can't just have 1 or 2 players. I'm a big fan of Namebase. Aaron had an amazing talk, right? That was one of my favorite parts about going to NamesCon. But I also think that the more platforms, the more people you have, the more people that touch other communities that you have, the better this is all going to be, right? Because it's a small, small world. My other takeaway here, I know I'm going on a tangent, but ICANN and Web 2 domains is not some big behemoth monster, right? That's looking to stop or control or anything like that. It's a slow moving organization. And anybody who's worked in a large organization knows that by nature, it's slow. It's not, they don't have definitive decisions being made day and night. They have a bunch of people kind of internally arguing slowly, taking vacations, right? Getting back to each other, and things just don't happen. Blockchain is very fast, right? And so it's very different. ICANN and Web 2 domains are kind of the biggest threat to Web 3 domains, in my opinion, but we have to operate as if they almost don't exist, right? We know what they are, and they're going to keep being that. They're going to keep being slow. It's going to keep being hard to get TLDs, right? And the way that you're going to gain adoption in this new chapter is just by getting new people excited, not trying to convince the old guard. The old guard's not going to admit that their $1 million subdomains, right, aren't actually worth what they think they are. They're not going to do that. But younger people might get excited about being able to own their identity. So those are my takeaways from NamesCon. Other than that, it was a really well hosted event. Being that relatively small, but I had a really good time there, and I thought that the panels were good, and it was very civil. Everybody was very respectful, which I thought was good, not always the case on Twitter. That was my tangent. Sorry. Let's see. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, like you were saying, like the uniqueness of the crowd that we were blessed to be around is literally the people who helped shape the internet. And we chose, I don't know if there may have been a better term that we could have coined at some point for these things. I mean, essentially they're digital identity, but we chose to call these things domains. We chose to somehow include ourselves in their industry, and unfortunately, now we may be more reliant on their acceptance than I think we originally thought that we would. Like you said, probably the best course of action is to keep building forward without necessarily being focused on their acceptance, et cetera. But I mean, I think we've already traveled enough down the path and gotten their attention enough to where we almost now have to start building cohesively. Because as you've heard, I mean, you were privy to the same, kind of discussions that they were having. Just as we're, have been or trying to build the utilities for these things to bridge into their world, they're starting to figure out a way to build it back, through the platform, the ENS, and I think well, ENS has definitely enabled it. Like it's a trustless, permissionless system to import the DNS, TLD, or SLD now through ENS. And the Unstoppable is more of an application discussion process. But yeah, like these two worlds are together now, and so to ignore the concerns that they're bringing to the table, I think is a mistake. And I do kind of so, and I don't know if that's what we're kind of segueing into, but that's the second part of the answer to my question is what kind of feedback did I take from here? By actually staying the entire convention and again having these better conversations and attending these panels that I think had better subject matter. I think I was able to get a clearer picture of why we may be hitting a roadblock or a brick wall as far as acceptance and at least in their world. Because their world, like you said, their world is an evolved ecosystem built over the course of 30 years. Like they have financing and things like that set up. They have these organizations and entities and more than anything, like ICANN, their utility, their setup, this foundation has consumer trust. It has consumer trust, and there's two types of consumers. Like it's not just you and I who think at the individual level whether or not we want something, but again, corporate consumer trust. Real adoption for anything comes when a large corporation that's already earned millions of customers' trust through their process adopts and says something works. This is something that we use. This is something that we see a value. Then others kind of trickle down and see that thing as value as well. Well, that's already been, the case with Web 2 domains. Again, it has a history. And on the Web 3 domain side, we've just got people, little mentions here and there of somebody claiming an SLD or a TLD or minting one thing or another. But for real corporate adoption to where we're getting, massive industries to take these things seriously, it was made quite clear what those roadblocks are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree that staying the whole time probably gave me a better perspective. There was a day where Web3 almost wasn't spoken about unless we were just chatting it up between ourselves. But I also do want to share something real quick as well. There's a lot of infrastructure, is the way I guess I'll put it, right? Between regulation and acceptance and kind of rules and things like that. Now, as a crypto person, I go, I don't need all that, man. I got the chain. Quite frankly, I got the chain. I know how things work here. I don't need permission from things, right? It's censorship resistant on a global level. That's the whole point. But there is an importance in building some camaraderie where possible, if your intent is to do business. If you just want to own one domain and ask no questions and give no answers, that's perfectly fine. Do whatever you want, right? You want to run a registrar, you want to build out a TLD community, you want to at least have an understanding of how things are done today. And NamesCon provided a lot of that, and people were very gracious in sharing the history of things. One chat that was really fun was the Jimmy Wales chat. Jimmy Wales, I believe it's Jimmy Wales, one of the co-founders of Wikipedia. I put myself in the shoes of a NamesCon 30 years ago, 96, maybe 27 years ago, around there. Some guy shows up and goes, hey, this whole new internet thing, I think it's great. You know what we're going to do? This is what we're going to do. We're going to grab all those encyclopedias and we're going to put them online. And rather than having like one organization write all that, we're just going to let people submit to it. That must have been absolutely bananas, right? And so that part inspired me a little bit because I go, okay, wait a second. Every blockchain project starts with some weird marketing, that says we're going to democratize the way that solar power is distributed across the grid, right? And it's like, okay, tone it down, but maybe not so much, right? The creation of Wikipedia is rather incredible, and still to this day blows my mind. And that was kind of unlocked a lot of which, kind of with the domain and with the browser. And that chat made me excited because I go, okay, having lofty, ambitious, global ideas do start with these types of people, right? And this is the place to start. And it makes sense that only a few folks out there are going to understand you at the beginning. right? So I, and Jimmy Wales is here. He's at, it's been a very long time, clearly very successful in some ways, but he still is kind of a kid with his Legos, right? Wikipedia, he had a mission, right? And he wanted people to be able to get information, and he's still doing that in different ways, maybe not 100% through Wikipedia and stuff like that, but he caught a version of the bug. And I guess that enthused me because over time, even though people get older and they start running a registrar or they start doing different stuff, right? They like there's a lot to be built, and it still felt like the right crowd, even if it was a different frequency, if you will, than the crypto crowd. Um, cool. Another thing that was really fun. I want to get your take on it. I think you were having a blast during it. Was the live auction? Do you remember that? That
Yeah.
was a that was a rush. Do you have that up on your channel?
I uploaded, I think, programming.com. I uploaded a Tourist Holiday. I uploaded the Austin NFT, and I've got a few more that I'm going to upload as well. But yeah, I do plan on uploading every single Austin section that I did record. And yeah, so when you're talking about the inspiring thing, again, like seeing these concepts that were at one time thought of far-fetched alien space ideas from crazy people, seeing them evolve into a thing where, a person is spending $1.4 million on a set of words that at one point someone thought were worthless, and imagining that could one day be our space, like that was pretty awesome. So yeah, I love that energy and excitement from the auction.
Yeah, that and exactly. It's relevant. It's influential. Wikipedia is hugely influential today. The domain you're referring to was holiday.com. I think
Mm.
we kept looking at each other during the auction for a bunch of different reasons, right? But I think at one point I just said it's a .com, right? because of where I come from, right? And you laughed just like you're laughing now. So I couldn't possibly fathom, right, any of the price tags that were being thrown out. But quite frankly, when you see holiday.com go for $1.4 million, I've also never seen $1.4 million just float across the air between words like that. So that was a ton of fun. Plus the quick shout out to the team who's doing it the right of the dot, right? They do these auctions really well organized. There was an open bar for the folks who like that. There was somebody running around the crowd hyping people up. It was like an in person almost flamingo handshake auction. Very very fun. And if you're going to be buying domains and have a good time doing it, that's definitely the place. It's not the same as me, in my garage on Namebase. It's a lot more fun in that way, and I think it gives the industry life. Going back to what we were talking about with Noel, and people get really excited about, yeah, which just seems like words, but it's a global address. And I hope whoever got holiday.com is happy with it, and whoever's rocking holiday on Handshake, keep an eye on that. So, for sure. Um, cool. Well, what is there? I mean, I think we covered most things. Anything else you want to share with the world of Handshake people, the world of iHeart Domains people?
Well, yeah. So again, one of the biggest takeaways altogether that I got from the total experience of what I learned, um, and this is a whole nother topic, and I don't want to argue centralization versus decentralization, um, but obviously I think the root to work, or the foundation of what makes the system work on their side, um, I think a large degree of centralization has made people kind of work together. Even though there's multiple people I mean, there's obviously like multiple entities that have found a way to, create a business and thrive and flourish. Like there's room for everyone in the Web2 domain ecosystem, but it's based on like that centralization forcing cooperation. And we don't have this on this side, right? Decentralization is like the core of our ethos here. But I think at least, and like I said, like the bigger problem that, kind of was broadcast out there was that, from them looking over on this side of the fence, they still see a Wild West. And I think one of the things that we can do collectively combat that is not asking for centralization, just cooperation so that we can cohesively push our message forward. If there wasn't any value in Web3 domain names, we wouldn't have been a part of their panel sessions and their curriculum at this NamesCon. If there wasn't any value in Web3 domain names, we wouldn't have had, some of the Web2 TLD owners, wanting to port their names over here through ENS and wanting to create Web3 ID on the side. So we know the value's there. We know it's real. Like they would have ignored us if we were just a joke. It's what we do, like on our side, to make sure that next NamesCon there's a bigger presence, and that next NamesCon it's an even bigger force that's singing an even bigger message, and hopefully it's more people like us from different communities coming together, uniting and putting that message forth to get those real buyers, those real organizers, those real entities, and those real platforms that can help us get adoption to want to do so. Because it's not hard for these Web2 registrars to add a link, an affiliate link, or even set up as registries to add Web3 domains to the portfolio. I mean, and Circa and Porkbutt and them already do it. Our quest is to get people like, GoDaddy, Dan, all those kind of people to integrate us in the same way. But, we've got some work to do externally and cohesively, like I said, as an industry. So that was one of the biggest takeaways I got from that.
Actually, I'm really glad you brought this up. Let's unpack that for a couple reasons. First of all, that when I say that one airdrop brings wisdom, here he is. He's trying to teach us here. So let's try to pay attention. When I say us, I mean me as well. I'm going to go back to something I said earlier. If you just want to own domains and degen and do whatever the heck you want on the web, have at it. I got no problem with that. Nobody has any problem with that. That's part of why this is built the way that it's built. If you want to see the industry as a whole grow, right, which by association would mean potentially your investment or your ability to build in the space, right? I foresee a world where I do some version of this full time, right? If that's what you want, the way that I remember early Bitcoiners building Bitcoin ATMs and all that wanted it, then you do have to think bigger, right? And you can't just say my tech is the best, therefore I win. Unfortunately, that's not how it goes, right? You got to change hearts and minds, and it's not easy. And it's not always done in kind of a rebellious type way. So you're right. Centralization has brought those people together. Now blockchain domains will not be, right, or in my opinion, the whole point is they should not be, right, centralized. However, if you are looking to kind of grow and build a presence, then it does require some professionalism. Now, I personally got into crypto to be ridiculous. That was part of my fun. It was like, hey, I want to just have a good time, right? This is technology. Old people don't get it. I'm going to, and it makes sense to me, right? And I'm going to have a persona. I didn't used to use like my photo, right? Just all sorts of, like, I would never put my name to what I was doing. And then over time I go, okay, well, I'm a professional in my normal life, right? Part of sales organizations and whatnot. And it's very important how you're perceived there. And if I want this space to be taken more seriously, I need to bring a little bit of that into it, right? And by no means is this like a challenge to anyone else to have to do it, but I do think that this is a common theme. The technology is freaking cool. It's cool, and it's also what's very cool about it is that it defends itself. It doesn't need me to defend it, right? It's a proof of work blockchain. It is resilient. It is global. It doesn't care what any government or anybody says, right? And so therefore, I already know that it's badass on its own. It doesn't need me to say it for it. But if I want to see some adoption and things like that, and get people to be a little less hesitant about it, right? Putting a level of professionalism to it will be good. And places like NamesCon is where you do that. And other brands there, even if they're speaking a different version of your language, just the fact that they kind of understand what's going on is a step in the right direction. And it's a good place to make friends. Now, my wallet speaks for me, right? And my portfolio speaks for me in terms of like where I'm invested, and I know where that is. But it is good to try to learn, and also to take note of some people that have been paving the way. Steve Webb from Impervious, who helped me connect with Mike Carson, I talked with him last week. Those guys run Porkbun, right? And they're really putting themselves out there. They're putting their money where their mouth is, and they do represent that community. And to your point, we wouldn't have Web3 panels. We wouldn't have people asking questions, entertaining the conversations, right? I wouldn't have had the gentleman who owns I'm forgetting his name at this moment. I apologize, but who owns a bunch of emojis? I'm big into emojis, right? He owns the .ws emojis, asking me like, all right, well, tell me more about your stuff, right? They wouldn't be interested if it wasn't for nothing. So there is interest here, and being friendly, at least, right, is just it's how things get done. It builds momentum, right? And that was also a big takeaway here. You're right. It's not as far as it seems. It's not as close as we want it, but it's not as far as it seems, right? And there are ways to bridge. And knowing that at the end of the day, you own a self-custody, asset, and you don't need to ask anybody any questions to do whatever you want with it, right? So kind of keeping that in your back pocket, knowing you have the best technology in your back pocket, right? And then just going and being friendly doesn't hurt, you know. Plus, I got some free food, some free drinks. It was a good time, and I got to meet friends. I got to hang out in a new city. It's at least that was one of my biggest takeaways, also from NamesCon. What any other thoughts?
Also, I gotta ask you too before we hop off, since you came to my state and tried some of our barbecue. What was your consensus on that?
My consensus on that is that it's freaking delicious. I need to up my game. You don't even. I was unpacking new rubs I got this morning. I got a lot of barbecuing to do. I'm an avid barbecuer, and I thought, my friends think I'm good, but I realized I got a long way to go from the great state of Texas, and I need to learn a thing or two. I need to be a student in that world too. I need to sit down. But I'm going to work on my mac and cheese. And I'm going to be working on my beef ribs this summer. I'll post some updates. I'll share them with you.
I did want to thank you for that as well. For anybody watching, you and Santiago showed some amazing hospitality. You guys are awesome people. Thank you for treating me to lunch. Thank you for spending your time with me. Again, like real life, talking to people in person, you realize, like, even in our bubbles, collectively, we're still in a very small bubble. There's a lot that we can all achieve together, and I'm glad. Like, I'm really glad for the relationships that we're able to build again. I look forward to next NamesCon. I look forward to more events that we have, that not only strengthen our presence and kind of our value individually, but start bringing us together. And it's not the easy thing to do. Like, as you've seen, like trying to stand on that horse, or not on that horse, but trying to stand on that hill and bring these people together in different entities, sometimes attracts the wrong type of attention. But do want to put this out here. I don't do this for y'all. As I said earlier, I do this for my love of Block3 or blockchain, Web3 domains, the technology. I do this in memory of my mother and what I wanted to build in order to leave a legacy behind. I don't do this for people. So,
absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's important. When Airdrop represents himself, he does this because he wants to, right? I learned that myself, and that goes for me as well, right? You cannot buy MIGs. You can buy my rugs, you can buy my merch, right? But this is a true passion of mine. I'm sitting here on a Sunday morning talking about it because I like it, right? And that's pretty much, that's all there is to it. It does require some vulnerability, but I'm happy to do it. No one's going to hurt anybody. It's just having a good time. Difference of ideas challenges people to think. Thinking is one of my favorite things to do. Probably right next to eating barbecue. And you mentioned Santiago. I want to mention Aaron. Aaron from Namebase was extremely thoughtful in explaining some things on a technical level with us. And Santiago came a long way as well to hang out with us. Very generous person. Both of these people, I think, maybe aren't quite on YouTube, for example, the way that we are. So want to respect their privacy, but incredible people. The space is lucky to have each of them. So maybe we'll get them on here for a dWeb chat. When Airdrop runs iHeart Domains. He has a YouTube channel where he recorded a bunch of NamesCon. If you want to kind of be there, if you didn't make it, but you want to see it, that's the place to do it. If you want to have a lot of fun, hop into a Twitter space. There's always something to learn. And he's always contributing, and he invites you. I think it's fair to say that he invites you to do the same. And I invite you to do the same. If there's someone else you want to see on a dWeb chat, please tag them, blow them up, tell them, go talk to Migs. We want to hear your thoughts. With that said, sir, I think we'll conclude this chat, and we should be seeing each other soon at a convention, either in California and Texas, or who knows, Turkey. We'll figure it out. Yeah.
We'll make it work. Yes, sir. Look forward to it.
All right. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for stopping by.
You too. Thank you.